thing, can I ask for one of you to push the little box at the bottom?
Mhm.
Ruby. Okay. The 10th chapter. Do we need more books? I have more. Whatever. So many people have kind of discounted this chapter. Do we need a book? There's some more in the bookcase down there for you. Because Krishna goes on and on and on for 20 verses saying, I am of the sun, of the luminaries, I'm the sun, of the mountains, I'm the Meru, of the animals, I'm the lion, of humans, I'm the king. I'm the best of the best. Whatever there is, find the best of it, and that's me. And we contrast this and hold it in tension with what he said earlier, which is that everything is in me. The B- students are Krishna. The screw-ups are Krishna. The thieves, the chronic depressed, all. So there seems to be a dissonance, a contradiction. Do you understand what I'm saying? Now, some people, and I confess, I did for years, just glossed right over it. But it's there. And what is our sage Vyasa trying to tell us? It has to do with consciousness. And by consciousness here, I don't mean chit, the substratum, pure awareness. So in the Chinmaya mission, if you're a Swami, you are so-and-so Ananda, the bliss of Chinmaya, bliss comprised of consciousness. Siddhananda, the bliss of accomplishment. Nirvi Kopananda, the bliss of no fun. But the brahmacharis all are something Chaitanya, Aniket Chaitanya, the consciousness of formlessness. The new fellow down in San Jose, Soham Chaitanya, the consciousness of I am. So we have a different use of the word consciousness. It doesn't just mean mind state. It's deeper. Chaitanya means like this deep, almost embodiment of understanding. Is this making sense? Yes, no?
Yes.
Yes.
No.
It's different from pure consciousness. Pure consciousness is always just the witness. So, for example, Jack is a physicist. So we can call him Jagat Chaitanya. He has the consciousness of understanding the physical. See?
So it's more like deeper knowledge.
Yes, deeper knowledge. And deeper knowledge also rooted in experience and mastery. Now, when these brahmacharis are said to be Soham Chaitanya, doesn't mean, he has the consciousness of absolutely knowing who he is all the time. Well, that means what he's working on. You see? Or I remember this one brahmachari was Aniket Chaitanya, which means homelessness. He was kind of attached to where he was. So he needed to work on being at home wherever he was. See? So, what's the difference between the yogi who's at peace in the world, who has the consciousness, the Chaitanya, living and moving and how to be, who has no fear of financial insecurity, who's not afraid of people, who has no fear or antipathy towards other people. What's the difference between somebody like that and some jerk you meet in the supermarket who's screaming and yelling at everybody? They're both God. The most obnoxious person and the greatest of saints. They're both God. Isn't that true? What's the difference? How well have we endeavored to embody that consciousness? Awareness of our own nature. That's the difference. So you can be what we call a lit Vedanta. It's all Brahma. It's all Maya. Brahma said the Jagan. You can say that all you want, but if you're screaming and yelling at people and fearful about the economy and stuff like that, it's nonsense. That is not your Chaitanya. This making sense? So, how do we move from this person steeped in ignorance, ego identified, riddled with Maya, fear, tyrannized by Vanja, wanting, Spriha, love, terrified of death? You get a little labor pain and you're pretty sure it's cancer. How do we move from that encrusted condition of ignorance into this great promise of freedom that the scriptures give us? So what we need to do is understand the process. That's what Gita gives us. What do I need to do? And what we need to do is understand what is the problem. The root problem is deep spiritual ignorance. Even though I may intellectually believe Sarvam Kalvidam Brahma, all this is gone. I'm still afraid of losing my job. God forbid the stock market falls. Oh, fear. Fear. Our ignorance, called avidya, macrocosmically we call it Maya, is comprised of our vasanas. What is a vasana? Vasana, I define it as a subset of sanskara. Sanskara is just an impression. Do you know that that's a table? Yeah, I know that's a table. You were taught that that's a table. You know this is a lamp. Yeah, I know it's a lamp. No suffering. But a subset of sanskara or vasanas. These are deeply rooted impressions that are all wrapped up with kindness and mindfulness. Engage in an activity. After the fact, we come to the conclusion, I really like that, I want to do that again or get that again. Or the opposite, I'm never going to do that again. That sucked. These deep impressions. And what they do is they cover or veil psyche. Technical term is avriti or Marana Shakti. unfailing power. Then the mind engages in what we call the Kshepa Shakti, projecting power. First thing it projects is the individual ego. I'm Jim, I'm a person. I have needs. Serious, this is getting these needs. That's the problem. That's the problem. Now, young yogis, full of enthusiasm, think that it's very easy just, oh, I'm going to give up my desires. Anybody here tried it? And as the Christians say, Paul says, I do not do that which I would do, and I do that which I hate. Therefore, it is not I that do it, but sin that is lodged in my lips. Sin was his word for vasana. Who's trying to stop something, but the habit is too strong and you can't? Or you've wanted to start something. I'm going to meditate every day for 40 minutes. Put yourself to do it. Give up gossip. The next thing you Who's had that experience? So, I love the frame that we get in Yoga Sutra. Yes. Practice. It's a Now, we get a step-by-step methodology to do this if we're humble enough. Go back and delve deeply into chapters 3, 4, and 5 in Gita. Here I am, person full of desires. You can't turn them off like that switch. So what does Gita say to do? Act according to it. You start acting in a different way, you're just going to build a new set of asanas. Act according to the vasanas you like, but in a particular way. First technique in the yajna spirit. Yajna means sacrifice. In that part of the Gita that draws this great metaphor for the Vedic sacrifice. The work for God, devote every activity to God. Everything is surrendered. And then do your best, let go of the rest. My right is to work alone, never to its fruits. Keep your mind where your hands are working. The karma phala, the fruits of the action. They will be Krishna. All we get is work. Work hard. Exhaust those muscles. Turn your body upside down. Dump it up. Dump it up. All those muscles. And renouncing the sense of agency. There's no jinn there doing the doing. It's Guna and Bhagavad. While we survive the force of the past as it interacts with the society. Now, what Krishna says is, paradoxically, the person in ignorance wants to excel in the world. They're full of ambition, full of competition, full of jealousy, full of comparison. Concerned about what other people think. If we're caught up in that mind state, we're not particularly operating in our optimum. Whole lot of psychic energy. It's all caught up in that. So the promise of the Gita is, if you're a yogi, this is your best chance of excelling. Harmony and I talked about this because we're both musicians. If you're consumed with how am I doing, am I going to impress somebody, am I going to do okay, am I going to win? Remember when we were all consumed about getting the awards for the competitions? You were wrong. What happens when you sing for the love of the singing, you sing for the love of God, and F if they don't like it? What happens?
Much more fun.
It's much more fun, and
it comes out much better.
yes, you see the paradox. So this is the vibhuti. This is the glory of the Lord. When you have yoga chaitanya, when you're moving through life with the consciousness, it's not, oh, I have it or I don't have it. We look at it. It's abhyas. It's a practice. And vairagya. Here, understand it's raga, which means passions, and the prefix is B, which is a superlative. Always understand vairagya, which is usually translated as dispassion or detachment. It doesn't mean aragya. This rock is aragya. It doesn't have any feelings. You're a stupid rock. It doesn't care. You're the cutest rock in the world. It doesn't care. It's a rock. It has no manas, or if it does, it's very rudimentary. But you have a mind. It's not about deadening or dulling your emotional nature. The feelings are the palette of the human psyche. All the colors. But we want to live. I was sent a YouTube video by my dear friend Isabel, and it's a Fado singer named Bhagwad Gita. Anybody have you ever heard Fado? It's spelled F-A-D-O. Looks like Fado, but it's Portuguese is pronounced Fado. She's incredible. Watching this one concert, she was just so into passion with the song. And she's totally for fun. She starts to cry and stuff like that. It's the Portuguese, I don't know what she was singing. She was in it, but not of it. Great actor does that. Ooh, that's tremendous. In it. So again, we're not asked to shut down our feelings. Take it to a higher. Focus in. Practice what Yoga Sutra says is Ishvara Pranidhana. Total surrender to the Lord.
Ishwar what?
Ishvara Pranidhana. The is, I think, the way he said it in the book. Total surrender to God. Total surrender. I hope I got this pronounced. But, that's not just right. So the whole point here is, with our minds immersed in Krishna, when we're surrendered to the flow of Mother Shakti in our lives, aware that we live and move and have our being in God, that when you're in that state of consciousness, my work, it's a beneficent universe that conspires for my well-being if I let it. But that's a state of consciousness. Doesn't add God. You don't get more God. And everything in your body, the feeling, nature, and your thoughts is already gone. So what's the difference between the physical creature and the good? How much have you, for want of a better term, in consciousness? How much does it enliven? If that happens, and we work at it. So if realization dawns, now we're talking a different story. But as we work, you will find your life changing. Now, some of you have been doing this work now for several years. Have you found things like certain fears have fallen away, certain conflicts just are not in your certain hassles or things like that? Who's had that experience? So sorry. That's what's supposed to happen. This stuff is supposed to work. And to me, that's the import of this chapter. That for those who have the consciousness of Krishna, or for those of us from Christian tradition, we would call it the Christ consciousness. What did St. Paul say? Let that mind be that was in Christ Jesus. What the heck did he mean? It's a good thing. And that's what makes a difference in this world. What you embody. Body's not the best word. What your child is. So as we go through, I think we have another 10 of these to go through. These excellences, these vibhutis, these glories of the world. Promise is, and the practice is, what of the Lord's glories will you bring forth? Paradox is, the more your ego disappears, the more God comes. It's not about struggling. It's not about fighting. Any thoughts on this before we get into scripture? All right. Mark, what number are we on?
32.
You help us out, please, Deepa?
Sarganamadiranthaśca Matyam Chaivahamarjuna Adhyatma Vidya Vidyanam Pada Pravadatamaham. Among creations, I am the beginning, the middle, and also the end. O Arjuna, among sciences, I am the science of the self, and I am the logic in all arguments.
Yes. So again, what is the ultimate? What is the acme? Beginning, the middle, and the end of all the sciences, be it mathematics, be it philosophy, music, be it whatever. Atma Vidya is the greatest of all sciences, knowledge of the sun. What was the last one?
I am the science of the self, and I am the logic in all arguments.
Yes. Reason. Reason, Vedanta never asks us to abandon our reason. We go beyond the mind, but we don't abandon the mind. We're not asked to believe things. We're not verified. Going on.
Aksharanamakarosmi Dvandva Samasikasya Ja Ahame Vakshakalo Vataham Vishwato Mukha. Among letters, I am the letter A. Among all compounds, I am the dual coordinates. I am verily the inexhaustible or the everlasting kind. I am the all-face dispenser of fruits of actions, having faces in all directions.
So what is the first sound that we make, little babies? Ah, ah, ah. And then the dual number, is that what he's indicating here? Is he indicating Sandhi?
He's indicating Sandhi. Of all the compound words, I am the pair.
Yes. So the laws of euphonic combination is called Sandhi in Sanskrit. We actually have it in English. People don't realize that. So T-H-E-A-P-P-L-E. Pronounce this for me. Feng, how would you pronounce that?
Can you spell that again, please?
T-H-E-A-P-P-L-E.
Yeah.
How would you pronounce it, Jack? Yeah. Hmm?
The hard one. Apple?
No, would you say the apple or the apple? It's pronounced different ways. Proper English in America is the apple. You say the before a vowel, the before a consonant. Is that how you learned it too? Actually, what you're saying is T-H-E-E-Y-A-P-P-L-E. That's what you're saying. In Sanskrit, we just write that stuff out. It's called Sandhi. Or when you're a singer, how do you sing the difference between W-E-A-R and W-H-E-R-E?
Oh, you do the H before the W.
Yes. Where? Wherever you walk, I'm going to wear a new shirt. So we have rules of how to do this, but they're just not that. They are in something. All these rules of how things combine, that's the essence. So that's the best. Sunday rules. Not Monday, Sunday. Going on. What's the next idea?
I am verily the inexhaustible or the everlasting time.
Ah, so what is the ruler of everything? Kala. Time swallows all things. 99% of all species that have lived on the planet Earth are extinct. Boom. This is Ishwara Sankhalpa. Next idea.
I am the all-faced dispenser of fruits of actions.
So, if work and desire were the only components in the production of results, everyone would get what they want. You always get what you want. Krishna says, I am the Paramam Hala. I am the giver. Some viewers very, very hard. They have one vocational or business failure or calamity after another. Someone else buys a lotto ticket and they get $800 million. It's not fair, is it? If we dive deeper, it's karma. What we get in life is work. Fruits belong to the Lord. Better do what you love. That's all we get. Next idea, is that all of them in that verse?
Having faces in all directions.
Oh, yes. So, Guruji, his face is the face of God. Krishna said, no, that's the face of God. That's the face of God. That's the face of God. Too bad I can have a puppy dog. That would be the face of God. Every face is the face. Again, great practice implied here. Can you treat every as if they were Krishna, in spite of what they look like or smell like? What mask was Krishna wearing? Next idea. Next verse.
Mrityuh sarvaharascha hamudbhavascha bhavisyatam kirti shrirvakya narinam kritirmedha kriti shama. And I am all devouring death and the prosperity of those who are to be prosperous. Among the feminine qualities, I am fame, prosperity, speech, memory, intelligence, firmness, and forgiveness.
So as we pull this apart, so what is the great equalizer for everyone? So a poor person who struggles, who dies at maybe 68, what is their state? Dead. President of the United States, she dies. What's her state? Talking with a fellow who practices asana. And he's reading this book on Kriya Yoga, and he was reading a section about these yogis in the Himalayas who are able to transform their kundalini and send it up on the top of the head and they can live full. What happens if you fall? Okay. So this does not mean crawl under the covers and live in fear. This means live with death on your shoulder. Cherish your life. It's not a rehearsal. This is it. Cherish. Back in the 80s, I worked with lots and lots of young men who had AIDS diagnosis, and back then, it was terminal. Usually anywhere from 6 months to 2.5 years from diagnosis to death. They knew they were going into that. Great incentive to practice yoga. Okay. And I must say, they were an incredibly alive group. This was it. This was sannyasa done. Now, live with immortality on the other shoulder. If you were going to be in the body for the rest of eternity, probably it's wise to pay the rent. So all devouring time, what's the next idea after that?
The prosperity of those who are to be prosperous.
So there's a nuance here. I was working with a young man and he had a job and actually the guys running the business were drug dealers. And they were making this drug called kratom. You know what that is? You know what it is? Yeah. What is it? Like an opiate? Something like that. And, you know, he's a yogi. He felt, you know, kind of hanky working at this. You know, he was attracted. They all go out on the boat. Cocaine, lots of girls, all that kind of stuff. So I just want to stick with it, Jim, until I get some financial security. So you already own 5 houses. No amount of zeros will free us from the fear of financial insecurity. Money cannot make you feel secure. In fact, earlier verse, Krishna has said, no one's more frightened than a prosperous person. Well, this is my stuff. This is my stuff. So the wealth, the prosperity that Krishna is talking about, it's paradoxical. If inside you're a sannyasi, then on the outside, how do you know about it? All is mine to you. If that's your attitude inside, and you know you're always going to be cared for. Whenever Ramdas says, dying is completely safe. whatever catastrophe, devastating love affair, financial disaster, etc., that you've been through, maybe an emotional breakdown. Truth is, you're okay. You're still there. You're safe. Safe. When we embody, this is our child. Some things happen. We lose the fear. So many of us have around. Start to develop a quality of generosity. Prosperity is not a thing, it's a flow. In the Hebrew scripture, the book of Malachi, there's this wonderful statement. God says to the prophet Malachi, bring unto me all your tithes into the storehouse. The tithe was the 10% that the farmer made, 10% of his wheat, or etc. And prove me now herewith that I will not pour out the blessing upon you, pressed down, shaken up, and overflowing, such that there will not be room enough. You find in many traditions this tradition, what they call tithing, giving away 10%. Now, if you do it in fear, it won't work. But see what happens if you start by giving away. First fruits, not out of the leftovers. Watch what happens to your psyche as you develop a consciousness of prosperity, which is a function of generosity, not any thoughts on this. It's completely counterintuitive to what we've all thought, oh, you've got to save everything, you've got to be very frugal, you've got to deny yourself, this is mine, I need to get mine, not, competition. And that never deals with the issue of food. Anybody have thoughts on this? Next idea.
Among the feminine qualities, I am fame, prosperities, speech, memory, intelligence, firmness, and forgiveness.
So, this is another grammar reference. Those of you who've taken a Romance language like Spanish or French, we have masculine nouns and feminine nouns. La mesa. It doesn't mean it's a girly table. It just happens to be feminine. So here, what he's saying is, of those words that are of feminine gender, these qualities. Sanskrit, we have masculine, feminine, and neuter nouns. So the highest word for God is just a neuter noun. Worry about. I don't want my boy to keep talking about God as a he. Sanskrit, it's not. Next idea.
That's it.
Next verse.
Brihatsam Tatha Samnam Gayatri Chandasamaham Masana Margashishoha Ritunam Kusumakara. Among hymns, also I am the Brihatsaman. Among meters, Gayatri am I. Among months, I am parts of December, January, or Margashisha. Among seasons, I am the flowery spring.
So again, these are references to ritual and astrology and things like that. We don't need to go into them. Does anybody have any thoughts on those? All right, going on.
Yutam Chalayata Masmi Tejas Tejasvinamaham Jayosmi Vyavasayosmi Sattvam Vatamaham. I am the gambling of the fraudulent. I am the splendor of the splendid. I am victory. I am the industry in those who are determined. I am the goodness in the good.
So if you are a rascal, best of them all are gamblers. That's kind of interesting. Remember what started off this whole damn war? You know, if the Pandavas had gone to Gamblers Anonymous, we probably wouldn't have had a war. Think! See the trouble. So I'll begin. What's the next idea?
Oh, sorry, I have to page. I am the splendor of the splendid.
Yeah, so if your thing is to be a splendid person, maximize that. Splendid of the splendid. What's popped into my mind, I don't know if I shared this with you before. Way back in old timey days in the 70s, there were these two singers, Marilyn Horne and Joe Sutherland. Joe Sutherland was probably the greatest coloratura soprano, and Marilyn Horne was probably the greatest coloratura mezzo. They would do these incredibly difficult bel canto songs, bel canto, very, very difficult. And they would do these duets, like Norma or something like that. It just come down to a sweet spot on the stage of the opera theater. There's just one place where the acoustics were really good. It's like one line coming from two voices, like the vibratos were fabulous scales and ornaments and stuff like that. Gorgeous, gorgeous line. And then at the end, when they finish the aria, they do love, silence. But it was in samadhi. And the applause would just thunder for like 5 minutes, 10 minutes. That moment at the end of the singing, splendid, stopped for that time. There's all sorts of neat stuff in that. What I refer to as aesthetic theology or theological aesthetics. What is beauty? And when we find something that is so beautiful, splendid, what does it do? All sense of sacred. Their words fail us, but we've all had those experiences. Get a taste of the divine. No, that's what it is. Next idea.
I am victory.
So if you're a soldier, beating up the bad guy. That's the next one.
I am the industry in those who are determined.
So if you want to accomplish somebody, do you have a single pointedness in mind to be able? I have a very dear friend who is, I think I've got the title right. He's a software architect. That's different than an engineer, isn't it? What's the difference between an architect and an engineer? Do the what?
The frameworks.
Yes. It makes shit up. And he's on the autism scale. He is the most single-pointed person on something I have ever met. You're just getting started on explaining or talking about something. Very fascinating because being on the spectrum, he's taken what some people at some time might have seen as a disability, and it's an enormous asset in his work. It's half of Silicon Valley is on the spectrum. Nobody's arguing. I see.
We're all nodding.
Yeah, we've been living here too long.
Pardon me?
We've lived here too long to know that that's true.
But the industrious people who can accomplish things, we're gonna have. Next idea.
I am the goodness in the good.
Yes. It's so wonderful to be a genuinely good person. Especially those who don't see that work out. Next idea.
That's it.
Next verse. What number are we on?
337 now. Krishnam Vasudevosmi Pandavanam Dhananjaya Muninamapyaham Vyasa Kavinamushana Kavi. Among the Vrishnis, I am Vasudev. Among the Pandavas, I am Dhananjaya. Also among the Munis, I am Vyasa. And among the poets, I am Ushana, the great seer.
Yes, so here it's kind of I was looking at some Botticelli artwork online. A friend who was visiting the National Gallery. I said, "Oh, you have to see the Botticelli portrait of the youth." Yeah, boy. It's a wonderful painting. One of the things that Botticelli used to do is he would put self-portraits. It's very common in the Renaissance. If he would do a group thing, let's say he would do something for the Medici family, and he would have Lorenzo and Cosimo and all those sort of people, but very common in the Renaissance. So here, Yas is kind of painting everybody in here. So headed upon the buzz. It's the greatest of them. Yas is himself. It's kind of stuck. Going on.
So should I just go to the next shloka?
Yes.
Dando damayatam nitirasmi jigishatam maunam chaivasmi guryanam yanam jnanavatamaham. Among punishers, I am the scepter. Among those who seek victory, I am statesmanship. And also among secrets, I am silence, and I am the knowledge among knowers.
So the scepter here is the symbol of power. So Punisher, the fundamental authority of the state, the scepter. What was the second idea?
Among those who seek victory, I am statesmanship.
Yes, isn't that interesting? Not war, diplomacy. As they're in the midst of a battle. A paradox there. Next idea.
Among secrets, I am silence.
Mandu Upanishad is a section where there's all these terms to so my favorite is of the division. Division. Division means to teach. It's on top. Next idea.
I am the knowledge among knowers.
So, of the people who know stuff, the highest of all knowledge is the knowledge of the gods. Veda Anta Vedanta. What is that knowledge by which everything is known? Without which nothing can be known. Without being. By which everything is. Self, self, self. It's the end of it. Next idea.
That's the end.
Next verse. It should be 39.
Yeah.
I think this is the end of the list.
Yachapi sarvabhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna tatadasti vina yatsya anmaya bhutam characharam. And whatsoever is the seed of all beings, that also am I, O Arjuna. There is no being, whether moving or unmoving, that can exist without me.
So all beings everywhere, the life principle. Everything is imbued with the divine. Our job is to endeavor to recognize. Next verse. I think we have what, 2 more, 3 more? 43.
42.
42.
We're at 40 now. Nanatosti mama divyanam vibhutinam param tapa esha tu tuddeshata prokto vibhuther vistaro maya. There is no end to my divine glories, O Parantapa, but this is but a brief statement by me of the particulars of my divine glories.
So we've had this 20 verses with more than 20 examples. Many of them had several examples in each verse. It's just a small. And again, back to my introductory remarks. Find the beauty in your own. children. Krishna is the glory of the child learning to speak that. You're really clicking and connected with the kid. Is that just for you?
Like a high.
Yeah. It's the beauty. It's the glory. Or as a physicist, when you tackle some very difficult, profound idea, work out something that's really difficult, very new. Don't you get a rush? Huh?
Definitely.
That's the beauty. It's the Lord's glory. This is listed. And each of us, those of us who are married and in a relationship, conflict in your relationship, you have the courage to sit down and talk it out, and you move through misunderstanding, and you come to that wonderful moment where you get back in touch with how much you love. You have that experience? It's everywhere. Any thoughts on this before we go on?
I think I think Greeks call that genius. Like the character, they have this thing. I think that when you have a creative thought, it's not you, it's the genius that's like whispering in your ears. Something similar to what you're describing.
Very likely, yes. That's a different definition of genius than we use it in English.
Yeah.
Very much so. There's a wonderful book called The Shape of Ancient Thought. It's actually written by an art historian, but it's fantastic history. And what they basically do is they trace of how philosophical thoughts move from ancient India into Greece, from there into Western Europe, mostly through Persian, contemplative Persian. I'm interested in all that kind of stuff. Excellent. All right, next verse. Let's finish this up and then we'll let you go.
Yadyapi putimam mat sattvam Srimadu Jintameva va Tatta Devavagachatvam Mama Tejo Vashas Sambhavam. Whatever it is that is glorious, prosperous, or powerful in any being, know that to be a manifestation of a part of my splendor.
So when we're in the zone, when we're channeling, when we're inspired, set aside the little self, all its stupid ways. We become transparency. We are to some degree God conscious. That's the Lord's name. Next one.
Atva bahu netena Kinyatena tavarjuna Vishtabhyahamidam Kritsna Nekamshena Sthito Jagat. But of what avail to thee is the knowledge of all these details, O Arjuna? I exist supporting this whole world by one part of myself.
So he then says, knowing these glories is so little. Don't settle for just the glory. Go for the source. Christian saint, Saint Augustine, talked about missing the giver. Yoga is not pantheistic. Pantheism says God's in everything. Yoga is panentheistic. Yes, God's in everything. It's much, much bigger. So yes, as we're sadhaks, as we're yogis working on the path, using these principles that we talked about. But as we exhaust vasana, mind will start on its own to turn within. Interior mind can move into secret source. Then we're in a whole other level. There's one more.
No, that's it.
That's it. There's
Should I
a
review
Upanishad at the end. Yeah.
Om Tat Saditi Srimad Bhagwad Gita Supanishatsu Brahma Vidyayam Yoga Shastre Sri Krishna Arjuna Samvade Vibhuti Yogo Nam Dashamadhyayah. Thus, in the Upanishads of the glorious Bhagwad Gita, in the science of the eternal, in the scripture of yoga, in the dialogue between Sri Krishna and Arjuna, the 10th discourse ends, entitled The Yoga of Divine Glories.
So next week we start chapter 11, which is the cosmic form. This is where Arjuna gets the equivalent of acid trip. Oh, Purnamada Purnamida Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate. Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Sri Guru Hari Om. Thank you all.